This is the Hyosung GT650R. It's got a Suzuki SV650 based 90-degree V-twin, putting out 76 horsepower and 68 newton-meters of torque. An approximate top speed of 130 miles an hour from this 80s type LCD dash. A 6-speed gearbox, twin 38mm carburetors, upside down 41mm forks, and twin 300mm discs with 2-pot calipers. Awesome. It has got a steel trellis frame, adjustable rear sets, left and right, 1, 2, 3, 4. 6-spoke steel wheels with a 230mm rear disc and a twin-pot sliding rear caliper. So yeah, the engine is based off a Suzuki SV650. I believe Hyosung actually produced some of the 650 type engines for Suzuki and changed the badges on them. So they are a tried and tested, reliable bike. They are a bit heavy at 210 kilos wet, and you can feel it a little bit as you're moving it about, but once you get riding, it's absolutely fine. It's got a 17-litre fuel tank, and I have to say, it's probably one of the most comfortable sports bikes that I've sat on, because the tank is quite high up here, so your chest does rest on there really nice and take the weight off your arms. It has got a slightly more comfortable sports bike seating position than what most bikes have as well. Now, this is a Korean bike, not Chinese. If you don't know the difference, I will tell you here. So they do get a bad reputation sometimes for the wrong reasons, because people don't know where they're from and assume they're Chinese when they're not. You can see the quality of the welds are fantastic, and the quality of the materials used is probably better than the Japanese bikes, to be honest. There is a lot of steel on this bike, which makes the bike so heavy. However, it is solid. It is really, really solid and well made. Look at this slab of metal for this top yoke, for example. This is fitted with a stainless steel Scorpion exhaust for more power. I've also fitted some decent sticky tyres to it. So, join me as we do some work on here to get it to the state which it's in now. You join me here as I rebuild the carburetors. There's a slight hesitation. When you got up to about 7,000, I guess, it would then take off like a turbo. I think what the problem was in the lower revs is the fuel filter was blocked up. I think the tank looks quite good inside. Oh, maybe. Just going to rebuild them with these kits. I probably won't use the jets in these because they are cheap. There we go, that's made light work of that. Cleaned that surface up. Whoa! I like gloves, but they can be dangerous sometimes. Luckily, they're so shit they just break. I'll just scrape around where the brush can't get to. There we go. Air screws, fuel screws, whatever you want to call them. They have got a little spring on them, and a washer and an O-ring. And the O-rings can get stuck inside the carb body sometimes, so the best way I've found is to get your air hose, and where these sit up there, that tiny little hole in there, that goes straight down to the fuel screw, air screw. Blow down that hole, washer and O-ring onto the needle for you. Oh, look at that. There we go. I like to stand the carbs up to do these and screw them in, because I know that the O-ring hasn't fell off inside there and is being squished up. The air screws are usually 1.5 turns out, so I'll do that and then check the book later to adjust it. We'll stick the main jets in. These are both the same size in these. Sometimes on the V-twins you'll have a different size for the rear cylinder to the front because of the different heat conditions they run in. Put the new float bowl gaskets in, just check around it, make sure the O-ring isn't poking out anywhere obvious. No, that looks good. Right, so last thing that I do before I put them on is just check that the float needles actually do a job, so you can check that out by blowing or sucking down the fuel pipe tube. Tastes like shit. Good stuff. These clips are doing absolutely nothing on here. Once the carbs are done, I am then going to just clean up these contact points, which is where the coils sit. Sometimes that is where they earth through on there. So if you've got a rusty contact point, you aren't getting a very good earth. Just check my wiring whilst it's off as well, just to see any corrosion on the contacts, etc. But these actually look pretty good. Bit of grease in them before I reassemble. I've got new plugs for it as well. We have to take or move this front radiator out of the way in true Suzuki-esque fashion. And then we'll give them, say, a quarter of a turn, just like that. The plug cap, there we go, in. Cool. To stop these rusting again, I'll put a tiny bit of copper slip on them. Same on the coil, tiny amount, good stuff. Right, I've just checked, and I actually even took photos of it before I took it apart, so I know where these cables went, so I haven't even got to worry about that. Put the rest of these on, then I can refit the carbs and the fuel lines, etc. Oh yeah, got to change this rear plug too. We have the airbox back on and a new fuel filter in place. Just got to refill the oil now. I've got a new filter for it, and I've taken the mesh out of there just to properly clean it. There wasn't actually any crap on there, which is nice.
Filament?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's working on the CBR.
Cool. Oh,
yeah,
oh my god. Oh, that's a crispy throttle.
Here's my CBR. Wow, look at them. CBR. Are they on the front? No. Look at these fantastic quality bolts too. They'll never strip out. Drain plugs do not need to be very tight. There is a torque spec for these, but it's about that. And I get my oil, and I'm going to pour it straight in. That can soak in. Can't see any obvious shards of metal in there. And I'll treat myself to some new gloves whilst I'm here. Oh, that's good. Perfect. Clean. Because we've pre-oiled the filter, we know that we've got oil in the engine straight away, rather than having to pump it through the new filter. And then we'll start the bike up to let it flow into the places where it should be, and you'll find the oil level will drop, so then we'll recheck it after we've ran it a couple of times. So, you can see there, we're up to the mark. Watch the oil drop. Will it start? It's in gear, of course it is. New fuel filter is filling up with fuel and the battery's going dead. Cool. But we can see, even without it starting, how much the oil level has dropped there. So again, I'll just top it up whilst it's there and then go and get my pack. Ooh, it fired then. Just run it for a second again. We'll just check that oil. Now it has actually ran. Chain and sprockets. Certainly hasn't been oiled anytime soon. You can see how stiff the links are there. That is one worn out chain and sprockets for sure. And then I've got some new brake pads as well. Yeah, that's very tight. So, it's the easy way to remove a chain, especially a shit chain. I have read that these are quite heavy wheels apparently from what they are, and I can definitely agree with you there. They have never been taken off, I imagine. That's not the worst I've seen. They've got a locking washer on these, so I've just got to hit this tab back up, which then means, which is just as well. That's why they have these tabs fitted as a perfect example, because that bolt, that nut is loose, but it can't move anywhere because of the washer holding it in. So yeah, probably just as well that these are fitted with these, because that obviously hasn't been tightened up properly in the past. Lovely. Let's go on to the rear. whilst I'm here, I will just check the action of the brake caliper, which slides well. I've got Gold Friend ceramic carbon, sort of mid-price really, but I've used them before on my track bikes and get on well with them. I don't know if I'd put them on 1000 cc's, for example, but on 500s, 650s maybe. Now it's important when you reassemble rear wheels that you put all of the spacers back where they should be, and you make sure that they're in there when you put the wheel back on, because that is what saves your bearings from collapsing. So you definitely don't want to be riding without these calipers. They are definitely some heavy wheels for what they are. How's the slight struggle? If you're clever enough, you can put a block under the wheel when you take the axle out, because it makes it a lot easier to put the axle back in if you're doing it by yourself. But like most people, I'm just going to struggle and do it by myself. So I've got one of these JT chains, JT sprockets as well actually. That's a split link on. We now have to pin the pins over to then make it so the link can't come back off. I've got a couple of special tools for this. I'm going to use this one and see how we get on with it. No, not at all. Not at all. Oh, yeah, so that's fucking great, that is. Right, the chain is now on. I sorted the pins out. Used a combination of this tool, which actually, when you work it out, is pretty good. And these bits, which is probably where they'll remain, because they're shit. Tried to balance the carburetors with my gauges on here, and balanced them, but it wasn't any better. I then thought I'd investigate the fuel pump. So we had a fuel pump here, and then tap on the tank. What I found on the pump unit itself, this diaphragm here, you can see where it is a bit damaged. That had got sucked down into the hole below it, and it'd probably been like it for a lot of years, judging by the condition of that anyway. It should be nice and flat to seal on the surface below it. I've ordered a new replacement fuel pump, and also when I checked the tap, there was a very similar diaphragm in there, which had essentially done the same thing, and it had slipped through where it should be. So yeah, I've ordered a new tap. Hopefully they should solve the low rev issue. I thought I'd then move on to the brakes. As I was then cleaning out the calipers, I then saw this corrosion on the pistons here. It's not ideal for sure. What I think I might do is take the pistons out of that side. I've already done it on this side, and just clean them up. Yeah, well, they're definitely better. You aren't going to get the pits out of it because they're in the metal, but it's cleaned up the rust and they're a lot smoother now at least. Much better. You can then use the pick to get into the recesses where the seals sit to clean up any crap. Now the main seals look pretty clean on these. It was just the dust seals which were a little bit dirty, so we'll clean these up. We have the new fuel tap here. So let's fit that. Oh, let's see if it's fixed the leaking issue. I think so. Just got to wait for that to turn up. That should be today, and hopefully we can get it running again. I will also be bleeding the brakes today. Got some racing brake fluid for this race bike. So I rebuilt the calipers. Obviously we lost all the oil out of them, so I've got a vacuum pump, which I'll show you. That fork seal looks to be a bit leaky, but we'll try the trick with that and shove something up there and scrape it around, see if there's any shit in there. This is the vacuum pump. Basically consists of a pump, which you can actually use to pressurize or vacuum, depending on what way you move this sort of selector. You get a pot, and you get a couple of hoses as well. So you go from here into here, and then that goes onto your brake nipple on there. The nice thing about these is you can set it up to do 2 calipers at the same time and bleed them both, which is handy if you have got an empty system. It's probably the easiest way and quickest way to get maximum fluid down to your calipers and get a lever pretty much straight away. We'll set up. We've got the vacuum pump, fluid pot. We've then got a splitter going from one caliper to the other. 2 spanners, one there, one there. We can essentially build up a vacuum on here. Hard to do one-handed. And then when we top the pot up with fluid, and crack the nipples, it will pull the fluid from the master cylinder down the hoses straight into the pot and fill the lines and bleed it for us. So yeah, really easy way of doing it. Top tip with brake fluid, put 2 holes in it. One where you want the fluid to come out of, and then one as a air hole, so then it won't glug as you pour it in. As you shall see now, it just pours straight out. There we go, we're starting to get a lever there. I'll then go back to my calipers and try them a couple of times, and then we're good to go. Yes, my fuel pump. It was quite cheap, both these parts. I think this was, well, I think they're about 15 quid each for this bit and the fuel tap as well. So yeah, not bad. I think it went like this. Get a really long screwdriver, much easier. The fuel pipes can go back on. That went on there, I think, yeah, because that's the vacuum. Because my vacuum gauges are linked up to, well, were linked up to the taps, and the taps were leaking, I'm going to rebalance the carbs again because I'm plumbed in, I'm teed into that, so it could have been giving me a false reading on my vacuum gauges. So we'll get it running first, and then we'll readjust these and see if it is any better. Bit of choke. Also have to let the fuel filter fill up again. We can basically take it off the bench at this point. Right, I'm just taking it for a little spin up the road. The low speed issue has gone now. I did have to tweak the carbs on the fuel mixture screw a turn out. I think I set them at 1.5 on the bench, but they were actually supposed to be 2.5 out. Fuel screws, which are deep inside the carburetors. I made this little flathead here out with an old Allen key with a handle on it. Brakes still need bedding in. The lever probably isn't fully where it should be yet. I'll bed them in and then re-bleed it probably just to get the last of the air out. A couple of little bits and pieces to do. The gear lever rubber is missing, and also I hate that wobble on any bike. It is actually in these bushes up here in the lever rather than down here. Here is good. I think that's about it. Runs really well. Put these bits out next on here and stick some new rubber on it because I intend to do a track day on this. What to do, the very basics. Tyres, new chain sprockets, and brake pads as well, just to make it sort of safe to go on the track. Top tip, I'm going to mark the rod first where the clamp sits on. Know then where to put it back on. So I'm going to get a punch and just put a tiny mark. And we've got a nice little dot there now. Lines up with the clamp, so we know where to put it back on. Now I think the actual wobble is sort of up and down on there rather than left and right as such. May need a shim making and wrapping around here before this goes back on. I may be able to get rid of some of it by putting an extra shim on this way, but I don't think it's going to help that much as opposed to putting something in the gap there. But it is pretty thin, so maybe a piece of feeler gauge or something. Got it in. I had to cut maybe 20 mil or something off, so it basically made a perfect circle with a tiny bit of overlap on there. As you can see now, work it a little bit. Oh yeah, that's better. There's a tiny bit of movement there, but it is 10 times better than what it was. And we've got to find a solution for this, which might just be a piece of pipe. And these have got adjustable rear sets from the factory, which is nice to see, I guess. If this doesn't work, then I'll print something, but I think this will probably do just fine. The easiest way to cut this and cut it reasonably nicely is with a 1mm cutting disc. It's now cut. It's going to sit on there like that. There we go. We've got some epoxy mixed up here. Like I said, I'm not really sure how this is going to work in terms of sticking rubber to metal, but there's only one way to find out. Right. Quick, easy, and cheap fix. And it's cool because it looks blue and suits the Honda type theme for this Suzuki copy. This fork seal was leaking. When I got this bike, apparently they were one of the things that had been done. So obviously they were done quite well. I've got one of these fork seal tools. I think they're mainly used for motocross, where you tend to get a lot of shit on the stanchions. But I'll give it a try. I have had quite good success with these in the past, actually. Wrap your fork leg up, because there does tend to be oil fall out of these. Gonna gently push that in there. We don't want to mark anything, so they should pop out quite easily anyway. There we go. The idea being that you push this up between the stanchion and the seal, and then bring it round 360 degrees, pull it out, and hopefully there should be some crap on there which is just stopping the seal from sealing. Push that round, we'll pass that through there. Try and clean up as much oil as possible, so then we know if it is new oil, if it comes out. Hope it fixed it. As it happens, the fork did not reseal, or the fork did not seal itself and stop leaking, so I've taken this out. We've got it in here at the minute, and we're going to disassemble it and change the oil seal up in here, which starts from the top there. It's a really boring job, but it may help someone. It would make much more sense to take this top cap off whilst it's still on the forks, but I usually forget, and I have forgot here, so we'll try and do this. Yeah, nice. Yeah, the oil does look quite clean. They obviously were either crap seals or they damaged them installing. Leave them to drain for a bit. Once you've taken the dust seal off, inside the fork here there's a snap ring that holds the oil seal in place. Probably best to use a pick. I've got a screwdriver. On this, I'm clamping it by the mudguard brackets and not the brake bracket, because we don't want to mess these faces up on here. Once the stanchion is out of the lower, the stanchion is this bit. Oh yeah, lower, upper, upside down forks, whatever. We can take the bushes off nice and carefully. And the seal. Now these bits, when you put the seals on, is where most people fuck it up, because they're so sharp on here. They're actually really sharp, that if you push the seal on without doing the trick, which I'll show you in a second, then you will damage the lips on the seal, and it will leak again. Clean the fork up. Right. Thinking about it, we might not have had to undo the bottom dampener rod. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Doesn't really matter. New seals, I've gone for pyramid parts. I've used them before and they work pretty good. I've got some grease, seals, and one of these little tools, which is funny. That's like saying they're gonna leak, but there we go. These sharp bits, if we were to put them on, we would rip the new seal again on these. So we need to do this. Luckily, I've got the widest roll of tape known to man. That should do it. Just fills in that gap, so the seals will then slide on the tape and not hit the sharp bit. There's a couple of holes here. They don't feel too bad, but for peace of mind, this tape isn't ideal because it does sort of crease up unless you put it on really straight. But that shouldn't be too much of an issue. There you go, fucker. We'll use some of that oil to put on the tape. That'll help the seal go on it, over it. even. There's some text on the seal on the outside. That goes at the bottom, so the oil is this side, and the text goes the non-oil side. So, like that. Text on. I like to spin these around as I'm doing it, because then the lips don't tend to get sort of caught up in one place. Right, there we go, just like that. Over them holes. Boom. Right, that's on. Then it's just a case of reassembling the washer. Could probably take this tape off now, and probably should. Anyway, there's that. I will put it all together, and then we'll come to filling it up with oil. And it's raining, so I've had to pack up all this shit and put it all over the place. Cool. That's good. I'll go and have some food. Yummy. So the fork's back together. I didn't get any footage of filling up with oil because I got busy. Either way, I discovered that these forks are a strange design. This collar is actually not attached to this upper fork leg here. So as I was knocking the oil seal in, it was then pushing this collar up to here, which I didn't realise, and was shortening this gap up, so it wasn't working together. When I worked out and then pushed that collar back down to then put the seal in, to then put the clip in to hold it together. So yeah, it's a bit of a strange combination, but either way, it's back together. I used my fork tool to set the oil height, which was 146 millimeters. Whilst the spring is out, you have to compress the upper to the lower and then measure the space of air you have in there, basically. So say the oil goes up to, in theory, about here. The tube sits on top of the fork leg with a syringe on this top hole here. This has got a hole going all the way through it, this metal tube. That sits on top. You put the syringe on the top of the tube and you set the height of this to 146 millimeters, and it leaves it perfectly at the correct oil level there. So there's that. I put it back together again and we're back there, and it hasn't leaked since. So that is good news. I'm now just gonna re-bleed the brakes because I've fitted braided lines, which I had kicking about, but most importantly, a Brembo master cylinder, which was probably as much as what I paid for the bike. I'm going to be doing a track day on this, and the original braking system used these rubber lines, which probably aren't the main issue, but this master cylinder, the reach on it, which maybe I'll show later on or not, the reach on it, even when it was on full extension, was not enough to get a good lever. I don't mind doing a track day on a Korean bike, but I do, at the very, very minimum, want the brakes to work. I don't care how fast it is, but I need to be able to be confident in the brakes, and I think this will change that for me. It will not be on there forever, but I'm sure once I've bled it up, it's going to make these brakes 10 times better than what it was anyway, especially with the braided lines. We've actually got a track day booked on the 8th of September. It is now the 3rd of September. We're nearly there. A few days to go before we get to test this out on the track, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. Look at this, for example, this slab of metal right here. It's all very heavy. I wouldn't want to hit anything on it. I'd probably go through what I was hitting. If I hit a brick wall, I'd break the wall down. But either way, there we go. Tip here regarding brake discs and surfaces where they sit. Your brake discs, if they have corrosion on the back of them, or if your hub face has corrosion on it, when you mount your brake discs, they will not sit parallel to the hub of the wheel. They will sit crookedly because the corrosion is stopping them from being pressed against the face where it should be. So when you take your discs off, make sure you give these a wire brush so they are sparkling clean. One of these, doesn't really matter, it gets the job done. I'm also going to do the back of the discs. You can see here, there's a bit of corrosion building up. These wheels, by the way, compared to the equivalent Suzuki wheel, are incredibly heavy. That's got to be, I don't know, 5-6 kilos maybe on the front, probably a bit more. Right, I'm extremely hot now after getting that off. Just as an idea for wheels, that's the Hyosung one. This is a standard Suzuki one. It is off a TL, but I'm sure the SV-ish the same. 1, 2, 3, let's say 4.5 kilos. The Hyosung one, 4, 5, 6, 7 kilos for the front. A good bit heavier. There's an idea of wheel weights between the two. What we're doing, is changing from these tyres, which are okay for the road, but not much good for what I want it for. And we're going on to these Diablo Supercorsa SC1s, I believe. Yeah, there we go. So proper track tyres. Leave them in the sun for a little bit because it'll make them easier to get off and on the rim. Right, so we now have to balance the wheel.
Balance the wheel?
Balance the wheel on this wheel stand.
No wheel down?
Yeah, we need the wheel weights.
You wait?
Yeah.
Then I don't do.
I'm only going in here.
Then I don't in there too.
Yeah.
I got this hammer.
Cool. They are the best tools. The best tools.
Wow, I got it. The best tool.
Yeah.
What are you using that for?
I need to find some wheel weights.
Then I don't do.
I'm coming back out.
Ah! It won't boom. Whoa! This is a big hammer.
Yeah, bigger than you.
It's bigger than me?
Yeah.
What happened to the over there?
Magic.
Magic?
Magic.
Georgian.
Yeah.
It is double Jim.
The machine.
Yeah. No, there on magic. It's about the real weight.
Yeah.
No, that's it in there. No.
Are you happy with this?
Yeah.
Me too. We can refit the wheel now, can't we?
Down the big wheel?
Yeah.
You to be in the wheel.
They're a 120/70 profile where the originals were 120/60. It actually scraped, or it was very close to the original mudguard here. May want to run tyre warmers with this, and even a stone would have got stuck up the inside. This is off a Suzuki TLR, and it fits okay. It doesn't look as nice from the front now. Not that it looked fantastic. Yeah, that looks a bit fatter than what it should be, and the gap's a bit funny. Oh yeah, and I put the fairings back on as well, and had to do a bit of surgery to the underneath here because I hate flapping fairings. They're dangerous if you are going to take your bike on track. The amount of fairings and mudguards I've seen fall off and then nearly hit them because it's the person's in front of me. Just basic safety, but I've sort of reinforced the bottom of plastic blocks on here going across this way. So they're properly secure now. Yeah, no movement on these. I don't want these to come off. It's my responsibility if I'm going on track. So the bike can be as cheap as you want, but it needs to be built properly. There's no excuse for loose things falling off. And here we are. How about that? Next video, you'll see me take this to Snetterton Race Circuit where I do a few sessions on it and give it a little review and ride. Join me next time. Bye guys.